Goodman, Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM, AM 630. WMAL.
8:37 on WMAL. We had Ron Paul on a little bit earlier. Now we have Governor Gary Johnson, former governor of New Mexico, who also wants to be next president of the United States, representing the Republicans at least in the big election coming up next year. Governor, good to have you on the program. How are you?
Brian, it's great to be on. Thanks. I'm here in Santa Fe, headed off to San Francisco, and then next week I'm going to be in New Hampshire to do a bike ride across New Hampshire, so I'm kind of excited about that.
Okay, fantastic. New Hampshire, obviously a very important state. I do have to ask you, first of all, though, that joke that you had the other day at the debate about your neighbor's dog creating more shovel-ready jobs. Now, Rush Limbaugh claims you stole that joke from him. Is that true?
No, it's not. I got it from a radio personality here in New Mexico who'd kind of done a call-in, and he was asking for zingers. And then when I saw that thing on Rush Limbaugh, I had a sense that at some point somebody else would come out and say, well, I did that earlier. The whole nature of joke.
Right.
Yeah.
And apparently that's also surfaced now, too. So I hope I didn't violate any joke laws.
Well, I enjoyed it. Were you, the day after the debate, partly because of the joke, you were trending on Google like a top search. Did that surprise you, and how do you sort of translate that into poll numbers? That sort of excitement.
It is only in America can you land a zinger on dog poop and be the most Googled name on the planet. But by doing that, the notion is that, I got to speak for, I got about a 17-minute speech. That's about what it takes. And the other night on the debate, I got to talk for about a minute and a half and repeat that twice. So I actually got to talk, in the 3.5-minute range. So hopefully people would go online and actually, listen to maybe just more than a couple of minutes of what I have to say.
Have you had a surge in volunteerism or donations since the debate?
Yeah, both.
Yeah.
Both. And, of course, Mary Catherine, I think you're recognizing the obvious is, nothing gets sustained by a good joke line. I mean, what gets sustained is that there is some actual substance out there. And if getting attention to that substance is being, is making the most of the time that you have, which was my 3.5 minutes, then so be it.
Governor, I've looked at your record. First of all, anybody who hails from or has spent time in the land of enchantment is okay by me. I have relatives there, and I love the state. But I look at your record. You were called Governor Veto because you were not afraid to use your veto power as governor. You have a policy of low taxes and reasonably sized government. There is one issue, though, on which I think some Americans would sort of disagree, and that's your position that marijuana should be decriminalized. Now, we've actually had this discussion on our station, and I'm surprised at the number of people who agree with you, but is that something that will sell nationally, and do you still stand by that?
Well, I do stand by it, and of course that's the micro. The macro is that we are broke, that we are, I think we're on the verge of a monetary collapse. I am promising to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013. I am promising to veto legislation expenditures that exceed revenue. And if you think I don't have the wherewithal to do that, back to the record, I do have the wherewithal to veto bills. And then I think that we should enact the fair tax. I think we should scrap the
Governor, I got to stop you there because I asked you a question about decriminalization of marijuana. Is that a position that you believe the American people will agree with you on and that you can win with?
Well, back to the macro. The macro is the macro is that we're broke. The micro is we need to be looking at all areas of where we spend our money. So when it comes to drugs, half of what we spend on law enforcement, the courts, and the prisons is drug-related. What are we getting for that?
So you would balance you balance the budget on by making it easier for people to get stoned, is what you're saying.
Well, look, I'm one of 100 million Americans who smoked marijuana. I don't smoke marijuana. I don't drink. But I have smoked marijuana, and given the wrong set of circumstances, I'm one of 100 million Americans that might be behind bars. Look, I'm not condoning the use of marijuana.
But you are if you encourage policies that decriminalize it as a drug.
It's not like you condone it. You don't have to necessarily condone it by saying you don't want to spend a gajillion dollars enforcing it.
Well, I've drank alcohol. I don't drink alcohol. I smoke pot. I don't smoke pot. But the big difference between the two is that marijuana is a lot safer than alcohol. Citizens of Denver 5 years ago voted to decriminalize marijuana on a campaign based on marijuana being safer than alcohol. Look, we all know people that smoke pot. We do, whether we want to admit it or not, and they are, I'm going to pose to you, anything but criminal. They may be making poor choices. And by the way, legalizing marijuana, it'll never be legal to smoke pot, become impaired, get behind the wheel of a car, or do harm to others, just like alcohol. That will never happen. But the fact that we spend half of everything we spend on law enforcement, the courts, and the prisons is drug-related, and to that end, we now have 2.3 million people behind bars in this country. We have the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world, and this is America? Liberty? Freedom? Communist China has 4 times the population, and they have 1.5 million people behind bars. So I would hope people would look at my position on legalizing marijuana and say, you know what, there's a thread when it comes to Johnson that runs through everything, and that is a cost-benefit analysis. What are we spending? What are we getting for the money we're spending? I will tell you, building a fence across 2,000 miles of border would be a huge waste of money, and yet everybody talks about building a fence, you know, another one of those micro issues relative to the macro, which is if we don't fix what's going on in this country, we're going to be left with nothing.
All right,
Medicaid, Medicare.
I want to pin you down a couple things. You said you're in favor of the fair tax, which is a national sales tax. Would you then repeal the 16th Amendment, which gives the government a right to tax our income?
Yes, that's part of the fair tax proposal, is actually repealing the 16th Amendment.
Okay.
It does away with the IRS, does away with all existing federal tax, replaces it with a federal consumption tax, which by all reckoning, by all free market economists' reckoning, is just what the name implies. It's fair. You make more money, you're going to consume more money. It does away with the corporate tax. So it really reboots the American economy, in my opinion, to lay the groundwork for the creation of tens of millions of jobs by the private sector, because given a zero corporate tax environment, why would you start up, grow, nurture a business anywhere on the planet other than the United States?
All right. We're out of time. It's great to have you on the show, and best of luck to you. Don't be a stranger.
All right. Thank you very much for having me on. Bye.